Hi everyone, this is my Neuroscience of Awareness blog, and I'm going to talk today about the difference between different terms that I've been using. I talked about the prefrontal cortex and the limbic brain, and you've also seen a video where I talk about the slow systems and the fast systems. And so now I've also been calling it the elephant and the rider. And moving forward in my blog, I actually decided that I want to call it the elephant and the rider because it's less confusing than trying to name specific brain regions. So let's go through it, and I'm going to do a larger presentation on this. This is just a short version. And when I finish the larger paid presentation, I'll put a link to it in the bottom of this video. So let's start with elephant. What is the elephant? And I kind of clumped together this idea of mind wandering. It's called your default mode network. It's also called a negativity bias, and that fast systems that I talked about before. And so in my yes brain talk, I also talk about the no brain, and I talk about how there's thicker axons and dendrites from childhood, and I call it your superhighway. That's in my caregiver stress book. And I just call that your no brain. And it's whatever it was that you were taught to do to manage stress when you were very young. And it's a coping mechanism, and it's basically that fast system. It's unconscious. So you just do it without thinking about it. So these are other words. The default mode network, it's made up of 10 parts. The main one is the PCC back here midline. And then another word for default mode network is negativity bias or mind wandering. And I have another video where I talk about the default mode, so I'm not going to go into it. Basically, when you mind wander, you're not happy, and meditating or focusing causes you to be happier. And the default mode network is dissatisfied. It takes you into the past or into the future. It takes you out of the now. And my main message in this blog is to begin to notice when you're in that state, and to know that you don't have to stay in that state, that there's lots of things you can do to get out of that state. And I talked about the inner critical voice in one of my videos, and that's another example of just that ruminating. And this is that fast system, which has to do with just things happening really quickly, like in 1/20th of a second. And the ruminating, it's kind of part of that default mode. So all of these, I'm just going to be calling the elephant on this blog. And probably the most important thing is number 3, that is referred to as kind of implicit memory or unconscious, meaning below conscious awareness. And then the next question is, what is the rider? Right, so I call the rider different things. Executive function, it just means thinking about thinking. And you've heard me refer to it as slow systems, or the prefrontal cortex regions, or the rider. I always tell people that coming from this place means that we're using neuroplasticity to pave a dirt road. So that's in contrast to the superhighway. So it takes longer to use the slow systems, like they take a half second to come online. So neuroplasticity is about learning something new, changing the way your brain is wired up. It takes time. So this is the yes brain is covered up. It says neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. I call it paving your dirt road, versus that no brain was that superhighway. And I always tell audience members, you know, which is quicker, the superhighway or going down a dirt road? And it's much quicker to go down the superhighway. So these slow systems that take a half second to come online, you're going to have to practice slowing down, cultivating response flexibility to widen your window of tolerance, and to have a wider breadth of experience and consciousness, and to choose rather than react. So when I talk about the prefrontal cortex, I'm talking about this area. It's called the medial prefrontal cortex, and also some ventrolateral. And these are the 9 functions here. I've gone over this in other charts. It's called executive function. So all this, and specifically response flexibility, it's been defined as resilience. These are all just words for this rider, this ability to think about thinking. Response flexibility. And empathy and insight is a really important aspect of having your writer intact. So I talk about brain fitness and how to grow mindsight, which is like seeing your mind and other people's mind. And I say that mindsight means that you can see inside your mind, which is insight, and you can see inside other people's minds, which is empathy. And those are those higher functions of the prefrontal cortex. And it has to do with focusing your attention. So it really is an activity of the mind or of awareness. So this is the writer. And this is, again, that slow system. When you saw my other video, it takes at least a half second to go online. And probably the most important slide in this whole presentation is this number 3, gives rise to narratives, imagination, and abstract thought, because those are the tools that we use to unlock the elephant kind of taking over our daily actions, thinking creatively, helping come up with a resource. Here's an example. I've always had a love of trees, like big oak trees, for example. And someone said to me, well, that's a resource for you. And it is. So like if I'm having a bad day, for example, maybe I might get a small oak tree looking picture and have that on my keychain. Or I can just remember that. That's good. That's better, actually. Or I could just remember oak trees are a resource for me. And I just specifically make a point of noticing big trees in my area, which I kind of do on my own anyway. And I love just touching them or being next to them or seeing them, and they calm me down and they make me feel better. And so that's a resource. That's just an example of using imagination and abstract thought, the feeling of the soothing nature of a tree. And I can bring that in. I'm kind of using my writer to bring that in and to soothe whatever kind of thing might be happening unconsciously, where I have like an immediate feeling, like an old superhighway response. So it takes a half second for those to go online. So the elephant is your negativity bias. The writer is like your executive function, the ability to think about thinking. That's enough today. I just wanted to give an overview, and then throughout this blog, I'm mostly just going to be calling it elephant and writer. But if you ever get confused, you can refer back to this in the future so that you know the difference. Thanks.